Welcome back to What Matters This Week. I'm Lauren Maloney. Joining me now is Jon Turner, and Jon is hosting one of the Vets Town Hall coming up, Burlington's Ethan Allen Homestead, September 19th at 1 p.m. Jon, appreciate it so much. Thanks for joining us.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
You served in Haiti, Fallujah, and Ramadi, Iraq. I know you've done these Veterans Town Halls before. This one will be a little different. It'll be outside because of COVID. So what other differences can we expect maybe this time around?
I think there's a lot to be discussed about current events that have unfolded over the last few months, specifically Afghanistan. And so I'm hoping that we can get some more local Afghan vets to come out and maybe share some of their experience about their time overseas or their time with interpreters while deployed or their transition back home once they came back from Afghanistan.
And there are so many stories, as you said, people
Yes.
trying to get interpreters and their families out. Have you had to approach maybe the town hall a little differently, given what's happened over the past month or so?
The last town hall that I was involved with this year was at the beginning of the season, and so I don't know what the other ones were like. If this came up as a topic. I'm not going to approach it any differently than what I normally do. I think that the purpose of the town hall is for people to share their stories, their experience, and what military service and what war meant to them, what the transition was like, you know, coming out of military service or out of combat. And that can bring with it a whole range of emotions. And I think that with Afghanistan being what it is most recently, there's certainly a lot of emotions centered around that. I embrace people's perspectives and opinions with regards to that issue, especially if they deployed there, because I wasn't in Afghanistan. And so for me, I always want to know the stories. I want to know what it was like, what difficulties they have, what their successes were. And I think that this is a really good opportunity for boundaries to be kind of dissolved between the veteran and the civilian population with regards to this combat theater.
I want to talk about civilians in a bit, but first, you've been involved for several years when it has come to these events. Did you ever imagine how well received they would be? Because now you do several a year.
Yes. I'm not surprised. When I got out of the service in 2007, I immediately began working with various veteran groups and the civilian population around the country, kind of talking about the difficulties and transitions that service members often have. And there's always been the question from folks around the country, it's like, well, what can I do? How can I support? And for me, the most prevalent response has been just listen, be willing to listen, you know, not judge, don't have your own opinions right off the bat, and be willing to engage in a meaningful conversation. And what I've noticed about these town hall events over the last few years and being a part of them is that we have our folks who come up and they tell a story. They talk about their experience. And then at the end of it, we have other people who are in the audience who might not have pre-registered. We opened it up to them, and 9 times out of 10, we have all these folks that just want to come up and tell a story because it's just like that barrier has been broken, you know, and they feel comfortable to be in that environment, to be with other veteran brothers and sisters, and to talk about that experience that they might have been
People who didn't expect
Exactly.
to speak, but then felt compelled to.
Exactly, and it's always just, it's very heartwarming, sometimes it's heartbreaking, but it begins that dialogue of moving beyond the narrative of having to carry this weight and this burden, or, you know, only being able to share those moments of joy and happiness that do exist in combat, that do exist within military service, with folks outside of the uniform.
And I imagine that helps in the reintegration process too.
Absolutely.
Caregivers who may gain a different perspective from listening to different stories.
Yes, and that's something that has happened time and time again is spouses will come up to me afterwards, not specifically with this event, but with this event as well, and they'd say, I understand why my husband or wife was behaving this way. Not in a bad way, but understand why they might be a little bit withheld, or why they might be quiet, or why they might sit in a corner. And I've had children, older children, come up and be like, I finally get my dad now, you know? And that's something that gets me every time, just because, you know, I think too often servicemen and women don't feel comfortable, you know, talking about their experience because they worry about what social media is going to say, they worry about who's going to judge them, they worry about who's going to say some nonsense about what they were holding on to or what they experienced, and that's not right. I believe that every veteran has and should be willing to share their experience to their own comfort levels, and I think that the audience should be willing to receive that well and not judge. Not everyone who goes into military service endures trauma, sees combat, or comes out with post-traumatic stress, or has multiple blast injuries. You know, that's not always the case. Some people go in and they do their time and it's awesome, and then they get out and you have other folks who are really affected by it in a traumatic way. What binds us together is the oath that we took to defend our Constitution and our willingness to wear the uniform, regardless as to we are sitting far right, far left, or somewhere in the middle. Politics don't matter. You know, what matters is the person to the left and the person right, so that way the people back home can have this sense of freedom and have this sense of belonging to a country and to something that's greater than ourselves.
You know, I think when it comes to the pandemic, you know, people have been through so much. It's changed our lives so much, and there has been so much attention on mental health issues. So I wonder if that tone may be something when it comes to these events now that we may see, that you may see more than maybe just 2 or 3 years ago.
As far as like an increase in mental health issues? Just
the awareness of it now, just because as a whole people are struggling.
Sure.
Even outside of service with
Absolutely.
what we've been through.
Yeah, I think now the general public may have a better understanding of isolation and what veterans do go through if they have endured some form of post-traumatic stress. Mental health is legit. Like, you got to take care of yourself. If you don't take care of yourself, you're not good to anyone. You know, and I think that it really hurts me to know that folks are struggling on that front, that they've never had to deal with stress in this manner before. I am a firm believer that we should induce stress within our lives, and we should endure some kind of suffering, because that's going to allow us to have perspective. And I hope that if anything has come of this pandemic, it is perspective, and not to point fingers and shame or blame because one person does this and the other person does that, but because we realize that beyond the struggle, beyond the suffering, beyond, you know, mandates and whatever, that we are human beings first, and we need to be here for each other, regardless as to whether or not we wore a uniform.
You talked about civilians before. I wonder if in conversations, maybe after some of the speeches, and you talk to some of these people, do they have a different perspective than they may have prior to the event?
Absolutely. I think around military service, there's this idea that you are the most patriotic of patriot. You know, I've met tons of people who have served and they absolutely hated their service, and people didn't really know that about them. You know, I've met people who, one person in particular that's coming to mind right now, I invited her out to the last town hall event because her father was a veteran and had recently passed. And she came up to me afterwards and was just, you know, in tears, because there was things that she kind of came to conclusion about her father that she never could have known because of the stories that she was listening to. Some of the folks that came up afterwards, and that to me is a moment of success. You know, that's why these things are here, so that we can understand each other a little bit better, regardless as to whether or not we believe in war, or we believe in peace, or we believe in our time in service, if we loved it or hated it. None of that matters. Like I said, it's just the one thing that matters is we took an oath and we wore a uniform, and we need to be there to support each other when we're out of it as well.
As host, what do you take away from these events?
I enjoy the softer, more comedic moments. You know, there's a sense of humor within the ranks of the military that is unique to the ranks of the military, and a lot of times when you get service members together, it's just, you start hearing terms and acronyms and things that you haven't thought of in a very long time. And for me, I always walk away from these town hall events with a greater sense of belonging and a renewed sense of purpose. You know, I think it's a fabulous model that's been put together. I think Kristen Eaton has done an incredible job, you know, kind of working with Sebastian Younger and getting these things here in the state of Vermont and in this region. And it's something that needs to happen more because it's more cathartic than you can think. And it might be a couple months down the line, but I'll sit there and I'll recall a story that one of the persons told and like kind of find a way to relate that to my own experience. And a lot of times, once more, it goes back to perspective. You know, it's just that everyone reacts to military service differently, and sometimes you just need to step aside from your path and see how they took it to better understand your own. And I think that's one of the things I always take away from them.
September 19th, 1 p.m., Burlington's Ethan Allen Homestead. It'll be outside this year.
Yes.
Okay. Jon, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
We'll be right back on What Matters This Week.